Folks, welcome back to the monthly hour, the live Q&A with the one and the only Dr. Heim, Christian Heim, all the way from Australia. This is time for mental health. And this is where we get your questions and answer them live. I mean, I don't answer them. I just ask the questions to Doc, and he gets to do the work. Doctor, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Thanks very much, Hurricane. I'm doing well here. It's fine. And yep, how are you doing where you are?
So far, so good. We're
so
peachy.
good.
I would say peachy. Listen, if you ask me that question, I'm always going to say that. That's just me.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, I mean, you can't. You taught me one thing over the years is that if you can't control it, there's nothing you can do about it. You move out of it. So I do that.
Okay.
I apply. I mean, so for those of us watching, it's a good advice, Doc.
Yeah, thousands of years old, but it is good advice. Yes.
Is it thousands of years? Wow. Okay.
It is. So it came from a Greek philosopher whose name was Epictetus. And basically it's part of the Stoic philosophy, and all of our cognitive behavioral therapy started off with this one insight that we're talking about right now, that if we can get ourselves focused on what we can change and forget about what we can't control, our lives would be better instantaneously.
That's amazing. Thousands of years ago, someone figured this out, and we're still struggling with the concept. I don't know why. I'm sure the life was different.
Yeah, but also knowing it is not enough, okay? It's like you've got to practice and remind yourself of it at least every day, okay? And that's why a lot of people start the day with a little bit of mind, body, and health for the soul, so that we're sort of primed for a day where we remind ourselves, that's right, there are some things I can't control. So if I get bent out of shape about the weather, I can't do anything about that. But I can bring an umbrella along if it rains, and that may be a good idea.
Planning is correct, right? I love what you said, primed, as in Dr. Heim, primed to prime. I love that. I don't know if it was intentional, but it worked out well. I love these little things that come on in the discussion. Well, listen, folks, if you join us right now, we are live on YouTube. We are live on Instagram. So, yes, it is a moment. You can come, put your comments in, either one. I can ask them live, but we also have a set of questions that we're going to put on the screen right now. And Doctor is going to start answering those. And, it goes from there. All right. So, Doctor, are you ready for the first question?
Well, I'm ready, Hurricane.
You're born ready, right? Here we go. All right. Dr. Heim, I'm concerned about my son being drafted to the military as it is now on the table from age 16 to 26. This hasn't happened decades. Not sure why my mind is playing games with me, but I'm literally panicking and having anxiety about the worst of the scenarios. How can I address this, and also how can I prepare both my son and myself for such a thing? Liz, LA. This is actually, a discussion in the U.S. right now. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a hoax or not, but it's been, debated, and I guess it is a question that we have to pay mind to. So, thank you.
Yeah, I've got to say, firstly, I haven't heard that's come on the table as in conscription, as in forcing people going to military. My understanding is that it's an idea at the moment only. And in Australia, I know we haven't had it since the early 1970s with the Vietnam War. And Hurricane, this is quite distressing for Liz and for the rest of us, because we have created a world where we seem to be moving towards more peace. And basically, that's what we want, peace and prosperity for everybody. And one of the signs of that is where you don't force our young people to go to war. So if we're starting to head back in that direction, then that's where the anxiety comes from. That's where the panic comes from. Unfortunately, it comes back to that insight from Epictetus that we talked about, that there are some things that we can control and there are some things that we can't control. What we can't control is the way the world is going at the moment. Although there are a lot of people who are trying, and all of us can do what we can, but in something so big, you'll feel quite small. What we can do is start to shape our own attitudes and the attitudes of our sons and our daughters. And this is where the importance of hope is, Hurricane, because where there's life, there's hope. And the hope is in this. Firstly, it hasn't happened yet. We are not conscripting our 16-year-olds. We are not conscripting our 26-year-olds. It's not there yet. So the first thing in holding hope is to know what the facts are. And yes, I know that opens up another can of worms because we're not sure of what the facts are. But as much as we can know them, know what the facts are. Then secondly, with that fact, is it something that we can control, or is it something that we can't control? Is it something that we have to accept, or is there something that we can do to change it? And if it's something that we have to accept, that's actually difficult. If there's something that we can do to change, that's actually easier, but still difficult. So, Liz, in these situations, I would actually say you hug your son just a little bit tighter and a little bit longer, and you share that love with him, with anybody else, just a bit more. And the eye contact that you make with other people just becomes that more meaningful and intense, so that with the shared humanity, we can get through what might be a difficult time. But I'll bring you back to the first thing. It hasn't happened yet.
Well, thank you, Doug. It's amazing because, well, you're right. Even the States hasn't happened since the 70s. I think, the Vietnam was, where that was predominant, I guess, across the world because a lot of people were engaged in that. But, it's amazing because, so listen, I have a 19 and 20-year-old, kids. So I'm in the same boat right now when it comes to the feeling about it. I know it hasn't been official and hasn't been announced as an actual, I guess, law where, you get drafted no matter what. But we do have recruiting actually in the States, pretty much at early on. I mean, we get actually recurring emails, from my kids all the time. It is not, mandatory, but, it's voluntary. So you get this, you get tuition payment, whatever, you get, you put the 2-3 years contract, whatever they have, and, you put your branch. And if you're interested in that, you can do it. And a lot of people volunteer anyways, and I think the forces, I mean, are out there. I mean, there's plenty with volunteers. But the idea, I think, with everything that's going on in the world, it just becomes a little crazier. We are actually in a conflict, at this time. And
yes,
so therefore, so I think that's really what drives people's anxiety higher.
Yeah, and it's exactly as you said, Hurricane. There is more recruitment going on, but the key difference is there that we still have choice. And when we still have choice, then we go into the area that's called persuasion. When recruitment agencies turn up at schools and colleges, okay, they're there to persuade. And in a democracy, persuasion is fair game. Because if we didn't allow persuasion, then we wouldn't be defending a democracy. And when there's persuasion, that means Liz's mum can do it too, all right? She can actually persuade and put her point forward to say, is this really what you want to do, right? Aren't there other things? What about this? What about that? And there are other ways, but it does become different.
Well, thank you. Well, listen, I mean, I get it. From any nation, you as a patriot, as a citizen, right? I mean, there is a time where we have to defend, right? It's one thing. I think the challenge is, some people can say that our wars are not defensive; they're more offensive or preemptive, right? So it kind of changes the psychology behind, like, why will I even enlist in such a thing, right? So it creates that. But ultimately, if it comes to it, I think everybody in any nation will do whatever it takes to defend their homeland, right? It's just the fact, that it is. But you're right. I love the idea of persuasion because it goes both ways. I mean, yes, you're getting bombarded with, park it in and, hey, join and so on and so forth. But then you have also the ability that this is what your path is. Do you want to be part there? I mean, listen, we have 340 million, people in the U.S. So we're a pretty big, population. There's quite a bit of soldiers in different, branches of the armed forces. So we have that. But I'm going to throw in some fun stuff now. When you think about this, right? We're in the time of AI. I mean, we've seen Terminator. I mean, maybe we just have to like create a bunch of robots, and they can create a bunch of robots, and we have a conflict, send them to a desert and let them just duke it out. That would be nice. just, I'm sorry, that's just a
No,
thought
that's right,
process.
Hurricane, because you're right. We're already there, okay? Because a lot of the strikes that are happening from both sides are being carried out by drones, all right? So we're already getting there. But even amidst the technology, it's real people that get hurt. And it's real people that get to make the decisions. And that's where we all have to decide. And okay, so if it comes down to, let's say, if you needed to defend your family, you would defend your family, all right? If you had to defend your friends, you would defend your friends. Your country is part of the people that you love. And so there's a point at which you say, yes, I will be part of that, okay? But particularly if you get to the stage where you're being asked to participate in something that you don't believe in, that's very difficult. And that becomes a different kettle of fish. And that's what happens in conscription, which is different from recruitment.
Well, thank you. Well, again, even people that have volunteered. I mean, I know that there's a lot of debates about people who have challenged some of the wars or even the deployment because they didn't believe the war was righteous and whatever. And so, again, this is not a show about that, but it does impact, trauma. It does impact. I mean, we hear PTSD is big for people who actually experience, real stuff. And again, last show we talked a little bit about more of the war and the conditions, because it is real, as you said. The drones are there. But people are getting hurt. I mean, real lives are, at stake, and, damage is real. Financial, physical, human, and of course, financial. And that's already like impacting the whole world. And this is just one conflict of many that are going on currently. So
yes, it is. It is. But the other way that it affects mental health is actually in the area of identity. Because the reason that you would defend your country is because you identify with your country. I am an American. I am an Australian. This is part of who I am. The difficulty comes when we're engaged in a war that not everybody believes should be happening in the first place, okay? And that becomes then, okay, so I don't quite identify to that extent. Or how much do I keep my own individual identity compared to my group entity, which is the nation that I'm a part of? And that's actually a tension for all of us. And we all draw the line in different areas. Like a lot of us will give up a lot of ourselves to be part of the group. In school, peer groups, conformity, but to be part of it, a group of friends as adults, we all do that. We have to, otherwise we wouldn't get on in society. But if we do too much of that, then we lose our authentic selves. And this is the tension. How much do you want to be your authentic self and risk being alone? Or how much are you going to say yes to being part of a big group and risk losing what you personally believe in? It's not always either or, but quite often it does become that way.
Well, thank you, Doc. You're talking about like when you have the identity, right? And for example, I'm in the UAE, so I'm almost conflicted right now with the idea, right? Because this is now my residence, right? And I live among the local community, and I have to say, they've done a terrific job, as government, as armed forces and all stuff to defend the land here. And and I can see why. I understand, this is do or die here, right? You gotta do whatever it takes. So everybody is proud, patriotic, and even I'm a newbie here, but I feel patriotic just because I reside here, right? And by the way, that is a fact. You those experiments, when you have a uniform, you become the uniform, right? You part of a culture, you become part of the culture, right? We have a saying: if you spend 40 days in a culture, you become one. I don't know if that actually a general, concept around the world, but we do have something like that in our culture, literally.
And so if we're just going to use you for an example for a minute, Hurricane, there was a part of you that chose Dubai, okay? But you chose it during peacetime, okay, when you weren't conflicted. And now that you're in Dubai, you still identify with Dubai being a place that you want to be. But in a conflict like this, it gets just a bit more complex. Let's say that way, because it actually does.
Well, Doc, the good news is I think that's the thing. There have been quite a few people that they decided to move on, and because this conflict became too dangerous and so on and so forth. But there are people that decided to stay. I mean, I'm one of those folks. Like, again, you're here, you're amongst the community, you do what you have to do, and you survive like everybody else. I mean, there are millions of people here, so it's not like you're the only one. So you
No,
kind of
that's right.
live the life like everybody else, and you make the best of it. And I have to say, I mean, the trust factor works, and we've seen a tremendous, great, work done to defend, to keep, the lifestyle, everything going on as usual, even though everybody thinks the world is ending here, but it wasn't. It was literally business as usual with some slower, I guess, traffic. I mean, certainly the air traffic has diminished for a minute. Now it's getting back. Travel in the country has diminished. Now a lot of people are coming for tours, but now that may change. So but at the end, what my point was is that even though, like, I'm American, right? I also have Moroccan identity, so I'm multinational. But when you live in a place, you appreciate the place, you become part of the place. And to me,
Yes.
and my family, we agreed to that. I mean, when this happened, there was a decision to be made, and the decision was we're staying like everybody else, and this is going to be water on the bridge eventually. It's going to move on, and that's about it. But the idea of the local, armed forces, the government, they did their job, in the highest level to defend, the communities, the population, and make it work.
Yeah.
And again, despite that, this is not something that anyone wanted, and despite that, it's not fair to be, I guess, bombarded, and justifiably, but it happened, right? So, but the idea of the anxiety, the idea of
Yes.
trauma, I think a lot of people, regardless, they have different levels of how they handle it. And again,
Yes.
some people have the acceptance, and we talked about that. Some people
Yes.
may deal with it differently.
Yes.
But that's about it. So I think we're getting better, Doctor.
Oh, we're getting better, but right there you're encapsulated because last month we were talking about how you went to the beach and it was being patrolled, okay, by jet aircraft, and in that moment you feel just a bit safer. You feel thankful for what the government is doing, but you also feel in unity with the people that are on the beach that are strangers to you. You don't know them, but they're protecting all of you together. So part of your identity is with people on the beach that you don't know. And that trust feels good. That trust is really good for mental health. Okay, so let's go inside the brain because that trust releases oxytocin, which is the same molecule that mediates the feeling of love, but it also mediates a whole cascade of very healthy effects in your brain. So it regulates your metabolism. It cleans out the white matter in your brain, okay? It makes for clearer thinking in your frontal lobe. It actually controls your anxiety. A lot of your anxiety, particularly that fear of being injured or death, comes from your amygdala that says, I don't like this. This is really bad. Let's get out of here. Well, oxytocin, that feeling that comes from trust, actually says to your amygdala, not quite these words, but in chemical language, chill. It's okay. We are with people that we can trust. And even though there's a part where your life is in danger, you will feel better because you are with people that you can trust. And so on the one hand, you've got that trust, which feels good and it's good for your mental health, but you're also in a state of anxiety, which is difficult for your mental health. Well, it's actually not anxiety, it's actually fear because the threat is actually real.
Well, thank you, Doc. Well, listen, I mean, it's the good news is I think this is dissipated and hopefully it will be completely gone in no time. Things will go back to normal. I mean, certainly it's going to take a minute to catch up, but I think they're doing a terrific job to make it, as seamless as possible, and hopefully getting back to the groove of things, and that's it. So let's I think we'll close the chapter of war and discussion about it, and hopefully we don't have to reopen this anytime soon. Although again, we still have the Ukraine, we still have the Gaza, and the Lebanon stuff going on, and our conflict here is still in the air. But well, again, I just, as always, I keep the positive light on things, and so I'll just keep it at that, and keep smiling, and tell the people out there, just as you said, there's a trust factor. Let's be happy, let's live. We can't control what we can't control, so we'll make it work. I mean, that's just my little 2 cents. Yeah. But all right, so I have a question, doctor, that came here. So I'm gonna go to it. This is actually, I think, a pretty standard question that we hear all the time, but maybe I don't think we've covered it before. Maybe we did in inclusion sometime, but I'll go for it here on the screen. So, what is peer pressure and how does it impact an individual's psychology? Jason, Brooklyn. I mean, as simple as it gets, I think that's a very real thing that we all have experienced to a degree, at least, from what I understand. But what is it from psychiatry, perspective?
Okay, that's a great question, Jason. What is peer pressure and how does it impact us? Again, we're talking about this core conflict that all of us have, that we want to be part of the group, that we want to be attached and together with other people, because if we were alone, we would get very unwell, which is why solitary confinement is such harsh punishment for anybody in prisons. But we also want to be our individual, authentic selves. And sometimes the two come into conflict. So when we're looking at peer pressure, what is it? It's the pressure that comes from the people around us that ask us to give up more of our individual authenticity for the sake of the group. And so the classic examples are teenagers, how much they drink or how much they take drugs, or how fast they drive cars, or if they're going to do things that are reckless. It becomes a stereotypical dare scenario. Will you dare do what you believe is wrong for the sake of being accepted by the group? Because we will like you if you do things like that. And so that's the pressure, because none of us want to be left out in the cold, but we want to be our individual selves. So the peer pressure is putting pressure on you to give up yourself to be part of the group. Now, the good part of togetherness with the group is we feel together with a group of people and we can share our lives, and we share more of that oxytocin and other good feel-good chemicals, which is good for us. But there's a downside of it, and that is power plays. Peer pressure actually comes from people who want to have power over you, that if you give some of your individual authenticity up, then maybe they can get you to do more of the things that they want you to do rather than what you want to do. And that's why it's an important issue for all teenagers growing up, how to handle the peer pressure.
Well, doctor, I get it from a teenage perspective, but I think even adults have peer pressure. I mean, it's not just.
Yes. Oh, yes.
we all have that. But, here's the thing. So we hear a lot of especially in motivation, inspiration discussions, and even success, talks, the idea of being a lone wolf, being have your own path, have your own signature, have your own brand, not conform necessarily to the rest. I mean, I'm one of those folks that I believe in that. Like, yes, you can work in the community, you can be sociable stuff, but still have your own unique perspective in life. Yes. I don't have to, if someone says jump on the roof, I'm not jumping the roof just because you say it. I don't care how much I like you, but I do like myself better. I mean, there is the idea of me, myself, and I, like, being the self is your first, right? Number one.
Yep.
I mean, why do people still kind of subject themselves just because it's like fraternity, right? Sorority, all these things that we hear about, and even in social media, we've heard of crazy trends that people are supposed to do these things to kind of show off or whatever, and they wind up hurting themselves. And we had the one with the car, we had people bashing their head on the wall. It's getting crazy, and people kind of buy into it. But it's like, is there a way, doctor, where you can see it, but you can handle it? Or is that just the way that we are made? I mean, as a younger age, we tend to easily be persuaded. As we get older, we tend to easily, be in control. Is that something I'm getting into here? Or?
No, that's good. And the reason that we talk about this in adolescence is because this is when we're developing our sense of self, the will, our ability to say no when we need to say no, and to hold our ground when we need to hold our ground. Adults just do it differently. It may not be drinking or driving cars quickly, but it may be buying certain ties or handbags or wearing certain clothes, all right? Or conforming not only to the latest fashion or the latest ideas or the latest philosophies. And so when we're talking about, particularly in times when the world politics is getting quite intense. There's a lot of persuasion going around. And so peer pressure, which is giving up your individual authenticity for the sake of the group, is what we manipulate every election time, right? People go out there campaigning for the people who are going to change their minds. Okay, you get a core group of people who are always going to vote this way, a core group of people who are always going to vote that way, but it's the people in the middle that we want to persuade. And again, it's making sure that you're doing what you believe. Otherwise, it becomes very hard for your mental health and to even live with yourself sometimes if you give up too much of that. And Hurricane, I'll just touch upon something that you talked about, that you've got to keep your own sort of thing, be a lone wolf with your own ideas. And this brings about the idea of leadership. And leadership actually is a balance between being yourself and being part of the group. Because if you're too much of a lone wolf, nobody's going to listen to you, which means that you're not becoming a leader. But if you are part enough of the group to gain that trust and that oxytocin influence on the brain, then if you have some individual ideas that resonate with the truth and resonate with the group, then you may find yourself in a leadership position.
Well, thank you, Doug. But everything has to be in balance, right? So in essence, you got to know where to stand. I mean, we all know we are designed, to know fear, to react to things, and not to jump in head first, in front of a car, right? So we know that. But also, to your point, Doc, listen, I've been in corporate for many years. I've led multiple teams. And, you're not, and I always say this in the business shows, that you're nobody without your team, because, you are one in the same, as a group, right? So even the discussion we had about war, I mean, it takes a village, a whole thing about, who controls who does what and how we can live and be, harmonious, right? It's the same thing. And yes, we have to have the distinctions. I can lead, but at the same time, I have to be able to get in with the crowd. The question is really how to differentiate between when you are in the lead, role, and you are part of the community. And I think one of the things in leadership, you have to be also part. A good leader is also a good follower. In many ways, you have to be able to listen, because even a leader has to report to somebody eventually. In the business world, at least that happens. But even in life, even you don't live in the woods, right? We don't live in a jungle. There is society, there's rules, there's regulations. You still have to be within those confines, of whatever those parameters are. And so we have to apply. So it's really just how do we maneuver and know that I don't have to do this versus I should do this. And to your point, the teenagers are in the worst status, because listen, even my kids, sometimes we've had debates about these things. Like, well, why do you have to do this? Oh, because my kids want. Why do you have to buy this? Oh, because everybody has them. Why have to dress this way? That's the look. They make fun of me. It's like, dude, you're too old. I'm like, I don't care. But in their mind, that's the way to go. Like, you cannot be completely. If you don't go to here, they're gonna look at me like with three heads. Like, you're the outlier. You're not a cool kid. So those are real facts, but it is an impact on their psyche. And I think it's very difficult sometimes to manage, especially if they don't have guidance.
Yes. In fact, let's talk about guidance and the impact of peer pressure onto your brain, because the brain is not fully developed until, well, we keep putting it out there, but now we're saying 25, 30, 35, even 40 degrees. And the truth is that the brain keeps developing. But when a child is very young, its brain waves are very different to an adult's brain waves. And the brain waves are slower, which means that it's actually more open to guidance from the outside world. So in other words, a 5 or a 6-year-old child is going to listen to their parents a lot more than a 16 or a 17-year-old child is. And you might say, yeah, well, of course, Christian, duh. But the brain is designed that way, because when the brain is young and finding out about the world, it needs guidance. And by the time you're adults, at age 26, you need to be able to make decisions by yourself. But that in-between time that we call adolescence, between ages of 11 and about 18, is a crossover period. And that's why peer pressure can be damaging, because the brain hasn't fully developed the front lobe apparatus to say, no, I know exactly what I want. And because of that, it's more open to the influences of the people around them. Not quite as much as a parent at somebody age 6 or 7, but still, as you know, it's very strong. And that's why it is sometimes difficult to get adolescents through to the age that they're 22, 24, 26, when you go, I can breathe a sigh of relief now because the insurance companies won't charge as much money when they drive a car. That means that I can trust them more.
Well, thank you, Doc. And so it's kind of hard because we talked about this whole thing about the brain development and the transitional age and all that, but now we have the social media aspect, right? We hear this all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in Australia, finally, you guys
That's
have
right.
a law that prevents children from, being, I guess, subjected to the bombardment of marketing and ideology that can be bad. But around the world, it's still kind of happening, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that's going on now, it's coming through that medium. I mean, when we were kids, at least in my age, we had limited time on TV. We had very little stuff, maybe the movies, and that's about it. And if you get lucky to watch a movie, you get a little influence there. But now it's like more and more and more.
That's
and it
right.
just and they just keep going. And the parents, and by the way, I do have a few comments from one of our viewers here on Instagram. One, actually, if you don't mind, Doc, I just want to quickly insert them. One was actually about the previous discussion that she just, made a comment about how the government also provided free psychological sessions for residents in the country, during the time that, we discuss as a global, problem here and, trauma and all this stuff. So there was actually assistance, available to people, which I didn't mention, but now I know more, so I'm learning. But then also, I think she's also stating it's basic in Maslow's hierarchy of needs: love and belonging, safety and security. I think this is related to the same. And then finally, her comment says parents should be able to show their children good role models. It is important to have someone good to look up to. So, I mean, a couple of things there that were in the comment field that I'd like you to see if there's anything that you want to add to.
Oh, Hurricane, it's not only good, it's absolutely essential. And I'm so excited that somebody talked about Maslow's hierarchy needs because,
Okay.
Okay, so Maslow's hierarchy of needs is like a pyramid that says, okay, the first thing we've got to do as human beings is take care of our food and shelter needs, make sure there's enough to eat. Secondly, we've got to have a society that's safe and that we've got employment so that we can take care of each other. But the third layer is what this person is talking about, that we need love and belonging. And without that, we will not get fulfilled. So once there's enough to eat, once we're safe sleeping in a good home, we've got to have love and belonging. We've got to be surrounded by family, friends, and people who are significant to us before we start expressing our own creativity needs and then what we can do to contribute to the world, right? And one of the things, and this is something that I spent a chapter on in a book, is that we are going straight to fulfilling our own needs before getting the love and belonging needs. And that's where so many of us are ending up lonely, hopeless, and feeling meaningless because we don't have that love and the belonging. And it's the people who have that are then able to go and express themselves in a very positive way.
So the rule is we need to have a lot of love.
Gotta have a lot of love. Gotta have a lot of love there, Hurricane. Can't do without the love, okay? And it goes with the brain chemicals again. We need that oxytocin. If we don't get it, we will feel lonely and we will get mentally unwell and we won't be able to reach for the things that we want to reach for in our lives. So thank you for the person who posted that on Instagram. You bet.
Well, thank you, Hank. So, Doc, it's amazing, this idea of fulfillment, right? When you feel love, when you have people that are engaging with you, it just but even with that, we heard sad stories, people that appear to be happy, that appear to have all the love and stuff, they still somehow have an outcome that is not correct, or sometimes even they go extreme, in drugs and other things. is there anything that actually can convert, all that love? Maybe we call it maybe spoiled. Someone is like have everything they need and they want, and they still turn out not a good element, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
depends on how we define that, but I don't want to make it a negative, but the idea is like it's not the ideal outcome of whatever the
Yeah,
personality.
yeah. And Hurricane, you brought in one really important word in what you were saying, all of that, and that was they appear to be happy. And unfortunately, as a psychiatrist, I have come across many families that appear to be happy, but you know what? There was something going on underneath, something that people couldn't talk about, or something that people were hiding under the carpet, trying to deny and not face, and we're hoping that would just go away. But unfortunately, it festers. It actually starts to grow like a cancer, or it becomes a seething volcano of really complex emotions, which is why, Hurricane, it's actually healthy for people to say, look, I come from a good family, but you know what? We weren't perfect. We got problems, okay? Because just in that moment of authenticity, you're taking away that veneer that wants to look good without actually being good. And if you've got a choice between looking good and actually being good, please choose actually being good. So if you've got a conflict with somebody that needs to be sorted out, don't try to make it look good. Pick up the phone, say, hey, can we talk? Can we work something out? Or can we just sort of say, hey, we may not see eye to eye about this, but I still love you, man. We're still brothers and we're still there. Because just saying those things, that really helps.
Well, thank you, Doc. And it is a fact. Listen, nobody's perfect. There's no, I don't think there's something called perfection. Although we hear the word, and again, maybe I'm wrong. That you can correct me, Doc, from your background. But listen, I have a family. That's the thing. People see what they want to see, right? We all show a certain look, in the crowd. We all show, certain things in social media. But no one's really. And I think you've covered this before, where no one is showing their true, problems in an Instagram reel or a TikTok, right? I mean, unless it's somebody else is taking a video of you having a fight, and that's a whole different story. But the idea is that we all have to face the reality that we are human. We have ups and downs, and yes, talking about things is always good. I mean, your work is really people talking about the real problems to get them out of the system. Hopefully, they can get a little, I don't know. So it's a relief, right? I mean, when you carry that extra pressure within, that can turn into anything, right? We've heard about, people going in the criminal aspect of things, right? Because they just had so much baggage that is, inside that was just kind of held, hostage in the middle, and eventually got freed and it's over. So it's kind of difficult.
Yeah. And this is a big revelation that people who are in the field that I'm in that actually make is, there may be a time when you thought you were the only one that had problems or thought strange things, and you find out that almost everybody does. Everybody has something that is not quite right. And when you see that and when you can admit that to yourself, you sort of go, okay, so I'm in a boat with a whole lot of other people, and we're just trying to get through this thing called life together, without becoming isolated and without making other people feel as though they're not part of the crowd because they've got something too different about them. So we use our humanity to help each other in our humanity, because, as you said, Hurricane, there is no perfect person. We're all imperfect in some way. But you know what? That kind of makes us human too. And there's something beautiful about being human, even if it's not perfect.
I love that. That's a nice one. That's a good quote out there. I think somebody's going to have to quote that thing and trademark it. Well, thank you, Doc. So actually, it's a perfect segue to the next question, because it has to do with being in a crowd. And so I'm going to put it on the screen here. Dr. Heim, every time I'm in a crowd and everyone starts talking at the same time, I zone out and get in a daze. This is concerning, as I feel sometimes lost and uncertain about how to engage. Samantha Albany.
Okay, that's a great question by Samantha. She talks about feeling alone in the crowd because people start talking and she sort of zones out, she says. Now, I don't know how old Samantha is, all right, but we have studies now to show that the use of social media is making it easy for all of us to dissociate. Now, what dissociate means is that our body is in one place, but our mind is somewhere else. And okay, we're actually all capable of doing that. And the example is if you're driving along in a car and you've gone through a town, but you're not quite sure if you went through the town or not because you were thinking about who you sat next to in the 10th grade or in high school. That's a form of dissociation, but it's totally safe because if anything were to happen, your mind would be right on the road and you'd take care of whatever. But in social media, we're attracted by algorithms to be away from where we are more and more and more. And so it becomes like a common state to be somewhere else in your mind and to be only half listening to the people around you, all right? Which is why there are organizations called the Offline Club, which will open a park and you pay money to leave your mobile phone with them so that you can go into the park and talk to people who don't have their mobile phones. And then you start talking to people. And the first thing that'll happen is you'll actually get an experience like Samantha had, where she's in a crowd, but she's feeling alone because she's not feeling part of it, because the mind is already used to being somewhere else with social media or with postings or whatever it happens to be interested in. But after about an hour, you get into this groove, all right? You get into the feeling that, oh my gosh, there are people looking at me, there are people talking to me, there are people listening to me, and I'm part of it. And all of a sudden you enter this space. And the space is a very exciting space because if you get, let's say, 4 or 5 human beings in this space at the same time, that's 4 or 5 brains that are totally unpredictable to each other, giving each other words and cues and inferences and meanings and little asides. And it starts to spark your brain to say, hold on, what do they mean by that? Why did they do that? Why did they say that? And all of a sudden your brain will start to be sharp. But this sharpness only comes when you spend time with people and talk with them. This is why parties are a lot of fun, okay? This is why debates are a lot of fun. This is why tutorials at universities ideally are a lot of fun, because you get 4 or 5 people passionately talking about something, don't you? No, you don't. Because I know people at university and tutorials are very silent now. People are too embarrassed to talk. People are too hung up to share their ideas because they fear judgment from others. And part of that is because of the influence of social media causing us to dissociate from the people around us, because with social media, we don't get challenged, right? They don't actually challenge your ideas, whereas any human being in front of you will always challenge your ideas if you say something provocative enough.
Well, thank you, Doc. I actually, there's a comment that just came in on the screen, so, that I was reading. Well, first, before I hit the comment, well, thank you. I mean, it is a difficult place. I mean, listen, I've been in sales, I've been a tour guide, I mean, always in meetings and all these stuff. And there was a time I was the guy in the crowd that's actually making too much noise, like that guy. And then I turn up and I switch a little bit. Then I became the other guy. Like I don't want to stay in. I mean, don't get me started. That's a different story. But I'll stay out until somebody pokes in, and then And I tend not to try to do that. But you're right. The idea of zoning out, sometimes if there's too much overwhelming, noise and stuff, sometimes you just kind of like zone out. Like and people can be talking and you just like literally like blanked out. You don't even know what they say at the end of the call. Okay. You see it sometimes in the responses. People just respond to you with some sort of a odd response or even the wrong response because they really were not there.
Yeah, but the thing is that in a way I read it all very differently because our standards of what it means to stay with people with you are becoming very different. So when you said you became the other guy and you didn't want to say too much, that's social skills. That's sort of like knowing that, yeah, I'm the sort of guy that'll say something, so I'll just hang back so other people get their fair share. Okay. Even to do that, you've got to engage with other people. You won't learn that on social media, right? The more social media we use, the more we all hang back, because we're all in this dissociative void. And zoning out it's actually a very difficult problem for a lot of people, but particularly young people, because zoning out means that you're not quite there with the people around you. And that is what's happening. That's what Caroline, my partner, is seeing in the universities. That's what I see at the universities myself. That's what I see at the hospitals. People are not engaging with each other. And, you know, Hurricane, there's a favorite part of my brain called the anterior cingulate gyrus. And it's my favorite part because it's the part that keeps us connected together. It makes us feel that we are a human being with other people, so that if somebody comes in a angry mood, you feel it. You go, whoa, what happened? Somebody just walked in. And you feel what they're going through. So our brains are connected in a very intimate way, in a very positive way. So hopefully we can get more of that going. And I am encouraging it. Yes.
Well, thank you, Doc. Well, you know, it's amazing because you're right. Like it seems that social media is getting people more excited, they're happier and stuff, but really it's causing the opposite, you know, feel of syndrome. Because it's like it's one thing what we see and one thing what it's doing to people, because people are not understanding how we function as a brain and as a human. I think that's really where the disassociation is, because the more they feel that they're like, we call it social media, but these are not your real friends. These are not people that you really, you know, you don't even know who they are. You said this one time, Doctor, we've done this this is our 6th season. And until we actually met in person, you know, the chemistry was different. We actually became somebody else. Like, I know you, I've seen you, I've met with, you know, Caroline. It's a whole different thing. Like, you know, I'm real. I know you're real, you know, and you can feel my energy. You can see if I'm fake or not fake. And so it makes a big difference when you are just kind of like, you know, texting. Even in attitude, people get very easy attitude. I can send any emoji to anyone, even make a comment and not fear anything, because we're like 2 continents apart. But if I was in the same room with somebody else, the conversation is going to be very different.
It is very different. But on top of it, Hurricane, there's actually more. Okay, so there's a new term around, thanks to a book by a neuroscientist by the name of Mark Williams. The term is digital dementia, because we have enough evidence now to actually say that social media and internet addiction is causing brain damage in the same way that Alzheimer's dementia is causing damage to older brains. Okay. And I'm sorry, that's real wow sort of stuff, because it's actually more than just we're just distracted. It's more that we're just not used to this. It means that these things are actually changing our brain circuits to our own detriment. So this dissociation, or as Samantha says, zoning out, is a very real thing, and it's part of a syndrome that is yet to be fully articulated.
Well, thank you, Doc. So let me just kind of read quickly the comments. So it says, but maybe Samantha is sitting with the wrong crowd. For instance, if she was single and their discussion topic is the best brand of diapers or the best school for kids, is natural for her to zone. It is natural for her to zone. You can also consider better when the discussion is relatable, interesting, or intriguing. Otherwise, it's difficult to socialize.
Yeah, and that's true. And that's normal socialization, right? You often end up in groups of people, right? Even good friends, where you're going, you know what? This is boring the crap out of me, right? And you just zone out because you are just not interested, okay? And that is a normal response to being understimulated. But that's not what people used to complain about. There's this new thing called dissociation and zoning out, because our brains have been deconditioned. Because even interesting things that other people talk to us about do not seem as interesting as the internet. And unfortunately, Jean Twenge, who's done a lot of good research in this area, quotes young people saying, we're more interested on being on our phones than being with people. We would rather be with our phones than at a party. And that is a very dangerous place to be, only because if it really is true that a phone is more interesting than people, then you can see how all of society is just going to break up, and we will start talking to phones and robots as though they're interesting. And the thing is, they're not. They don't have a single original thought. We're all enamored by a technology at the moment, and we're starving each other of the kindness and the interesting conversation that we deserve to give to each other.
Well, thank you. It's funny. You talked about these sparks, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it is sad to even hear that we have to go to the point where we have to create these parks that are specific just so you can drop your phone. I mean, you should know that we go to the park, my phone. By the way, I see this all the time. I'm on a cruise ship. I'm in a restaurant. I'm anywhere, in live, and people literally are just on their phones, or they're not even engaging with the people. They can be sitting down on a table eating. Everybody picks up their phone. I mean, there's a time and a place for everything. Listen, I do this work, right? I'm in the media. I'm supposed to have a lot of stuff, and I do post a lot of stuff. I got 7,000 plus,
Right.
posts on Instagram. However, it doesn't disturb my peace in terms of when I'm working or when I'm engaging with people. There's a time. It's planning, right? It's how you play on these things. And frankly, people should. I mean, I can't say should, because I can't change people's minds, but hopefully through these discussions, someone can actually get a little bit of a glimpse, like, I can do this better. And you're right, Doc. We'll become zombies, and I actually refer to a lot of folks with phones. I mean, I call them one human zombie, one hand zombie humans, because they're literally walking with their phone, and I see people crossing, they don't even look. I see people just looking at their phone in the zone. They hit in the pole. I mean, we've seen it all on social media. Like, people sometimes catch these things, but it is becoming very disturbing to see that we are there. And to your point, it's not real. There's no affection. There's no real, belonging. There's no chemistry. There's no energy exchange. I mean, someone is, it's funny. I was talking to my son about some martial arts stuff. And in one of the tests I had, our professor, in the test, you would have to come up to him from the back, and you have to approach him without him sensing you. Now, it sounds like, some woo stuff, but it is real. Like, it's a different art. So you have to be almost like sneak up on him without him to feel your energy. Like,
Yes.
he obviously, we were in the grass. It was in the backyard, literally. But you have to be able to make it. Now, the ability to sense energy around you is real.
Yes. Yes.
And people don't understand that sometimes, but it's a fact. And we lose all that by being with the device. Now, here's the thing. What happens if we lose internet? I mean, imagine that. I mean, oops. I mean, we would definitely lose the show, but we can certainly do the show live together and go old school, do a camera, tape it, and then, put it on the broadcast later or something. But really, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, no. So imagine if we had this show, okay, and we were in a large park somewhere in Southern Europe, let's say, okay, and we had a large crowd there, and we started talking about things. Other people would join in the conversation. Other people would come up with different ideas. There would be some debates. There would be some arguments, but we would encounter each other as human beings. At the moment, we're doing a little bit of that, and there are people that are listening to what we're talking about. But there is something in the engagement with screens that is detrimental to the human brain. And now I've got to take us all to Sweden, because Sweden is a country that prided itself in having one of the best education systems in the world. The problem is twofold. They're dropping in the rankings, and IQs of young people are dropping. So in that context, what they're doing is they're taking computers away from pupils at school and making them use books and pens and pencils, so that they don't engage with the screen anymore. Because, okay, they're being criticized because people think, well, they're not going to be up with their latest technology, and that's true, they're not, but they're concerned that their brains are not developing. And human brain development is, in a way, what the whole of our bodies are about. Every part of our body is there just to give the brain information or to feed it with nutrients so that it can interact with other brains and enjoy itself immensely in this world.
Well, Doctor, thank you so much for that. And you're right. I mean, even there are studies that I've read about, if you write stuff, you tend to memorize better. You tend
Yes.
to relate better. Even for your eyesight, I think reading a book versus reading an actual, digital book is, better reading it from an actual paper book than that for your eyes, because there's no light that's beaming up into you. So there's a lot of, technology is great. And like everything else, it's how you use it and whether you use it correctly or not. If you abuse it, it's just going to have an outside, I would say, adverse reaction. And I'll
Yep.
keep it at that.
Yep.
Well, so speaking of, go ahead, doctor. You want to?
Okay. So we're at a point now where we've bagged out social media for quite some time here, and what tends to happen, Hurricane, is people go, "Oh no, I'm spending a lot of time on social media. What am I going to do?" So just here, I want to give a few techniques as to what people can do to actually reinvigorate their brains to be sharp with other people again. Right. So the first thing you actually need to do is to give yourself a social media holiday, which means you've actually got to get away from a social media machine for as long as you can. If you can do it for 2 weeks, the best way to do it is to go to a summer camp or to go away with a group of people that will also do this with you, because then you'll get that stimulation and your brain will go, you know what, I'm actually enjoying this a whole lot more. And right there, Hurricane, that's really, really hard to do. But for people who can't do that, to spend 1 hour a day in nature, on the beach, in a forest, by a lake, without any device, and just listen, just sense nature, listen to the birds. See if you can feel somebody creeping up behind you like that martial arts master, and make your senses alive. What does a place smell like? And if you're able to do that for 1 hour a day and have 1 day a week when you've got no technology whatsoever, that's probably the most practical thing that people can do to resensitize their brain to say, no, I'm going to be alive. I'm going to be there with other people. I want to be right there with it.
Well, doctor, it's not difficult though. That the whole thing is, I think, is very attainable. It's very easy, and someone somewhere has access to a minimum, a park or something to them, that they can do this. It's not, and even a couple of hours, right? It's you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. But what you just said there, right? Sort of, not too difficult. Because it's addictive, it actually is difficult. It's like asking somebody who smokes too much marijuana to give up marijuana, right? It really is like that, because there is this addictive quality to it that keeps us hooked. And it's the frustration and the anger that you will feel when you don't have your phone with you or any screen, or the boredom that you will feel that lets you know that you are actually addicted. And when you get that feeling, just start walking. Start walking down the beach, in the forest, and just keep walking, okay? Because it's an amazing feeling to walk. Your body is going forward and your brain goes, okay, we're actually going to progress. We're going forward. What are we progressing in? And it's that detox that you'll be progressing in.
Well, thank you, Doc. But just to clarify for people, do not take your phone with you.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Because that defeats the purpose. Because I see people also in the park. They're walking in the park, but they're looking at their device. So it's like you're not engaged with nature. Again, folks, I'm not a critical person about these things. I mean, to each his own, as they say. But our job is to share information that's valuable to the mind, body, spirit, and hopefully we can make a little difference in this world. That's really what we're doing here. Dr. Heim's role is to assist people get through their personal, nature and dilemmas. And he helps people around the world, everywhere and anywhere. He's doing conferences and things like that. But I wanted to touch on something quickly, Doc. I know you just released a book. You kind of alluded to the book. Can you just briefly share something about the book to our audiences, and if that's something available to people to actually, get?
Okay. Yeah. So Hurricane, what we've just done is we've just gone into a second edition of a book that's called How to Forgive Using Neuroplasticity. So we've been talking about how the brain can be changed by social media. It can also be changed for the good, right? So there are steps that you can take because our brain is changing all the time. And in my practice as a psychiatrist, I've come across a lot of people that have had, let's say, traumatic experiences. And the idea of forgiving somebody sounds abhorrent at first, or other people just think, well, forgiveness is just a religious thing, isn't it? Well, we've got so much scientific data now to show that one of the ways to benefit your brain is to practice forgiveness, not for the other people, but for yourself, so that you can free your mind of really complex emotions like anger, bitterness, and resentment. So you can get some of the freedom that we're talking about here, Hurricane, so that you can actually be with other people and enjoy yourself and be sharp around them to enjoy those interactions.
Well, doctor, thank you. I mean, we will have, I guess the link to the book as well on this particular show, because I think it's something that people can benefit from, and it's a real book. So
It's a real book.
I'm
Yes,
not sure you can actually buy it, smell it. I mean, it feels good. I know we're at the end of the hour here. There's one more comment from our friend Hind, and
yeah, let's do it.
she states, people like their phones not only because it's interesting. I think it is because they feel a sense of power. Skipping content, speeding up, blocking, etc. Being in control feels good. What
Yes.
what would you like to say to that, Doc?
Okay, so being in control feels good, and I agree with that, except that it's the social media platforms that are in control of you. You're not in control. Okay. If you're in control, then this is the way to use social media. Decide what you're going to read and what you're going to post before you turn your phones on, right? Then do that. And you'll find it'll take you about 10 minutes at the most, and then you turn it off again. It's when you turn your phone on and you go, oh, this seems interesting, or I wonder what this is all about. That's when you learn that you're actually not in control, that somebody else is in control of you. And that's the sad fact of it. I use social media every day. I have to for my work, but I time limit it. I will use it for half an hour. I'll get through my emails. I'll get through whatever responses I have to give, but then I shut down. And look, that's easier for me to do because I grew up without these things. So my brain has been shaped without it. But if your brain has been shaped with it, it'll take some time to regain the control that other people have taken away from you.
Well, thank you, Doc. And it's interesting. I mean, the idea of that you're not in control. The algorithm is because it is designed to pushes content to you based on. I mean, it's very obvious. You clear. I don't know. You put something about nature, and all you see is nature. You do something about alcohol, you're going to see alcohol. Whatever it is, it's going to guide you towards that and keeps pumping more of that, and you just get caught into it. So I guess the idea of control is a perception, right? So
Well,
it's
yeah,
more.
and part of the things that have just been played out in court, okay, with basically Facebook and Instagram showing that they knowingly put these technologies out for the sole purpose of getting people addicted. That's played out in court, and that's actually been based on scientific evidence. And it was one of the reasons that not only did the CEOs in Silicon Valley not allow their children to use these technologies, but on top of it, they sent them to schools that didn't use these technologies at all. Okay. So this has been something that's been known for a good 2 decades. And I think we'll get through it, Hurricane. I think we'll get to the stage where we can use all this wonderful technology to our benefit rather than to our detriment. But we want to get to the stage where people are back on board in being full-blooded human beings and actually expressing that to each other rather than to screens.
Well, Doctor, thank you. I mean, I love. We can talk for hours here, and we'll save some of the next. We have a whole list of questions. We'll have them for the next one. Of course, we exceeded the hour here, so I just want to thank you, Doc, for being with us. Of course, great insights, and I just love that. I always say this. I love the show. I mean, I enjoy it not only because I'm doing the show, I'm actually getting the information. It kind of keeps me going. I finish this show, I go out takes me a couple of weeks that I'm still pumped and start dissipating. I look forward to the next one. But
so do I, Hurricane. So do I.
Thank you. Well, again, I want to thank our guest, a viewer who actually has interacted. Actually, I do know him, personal friend, and very interactive, with us today. So thank you for being with us and, sharing some of the values here. And we love that. I mean, we welcome more interactions with people. And again, do send your questions anonymously. You don't have to put your name. If you do, that's fine. If not, that's okay. You can literally, if you want to even be on the show, folks, just let us know. We'll prepare, and you'll be on the screen with us, and we can have a debate or discussion of whatever you want. Right, Doc? Is that okay? Is there something we can do?
Fine with me. Totally fine, Hurricane.
All right. All right. Well, so that's the end of the show, folks. So I hope you've enjoyed the discussion. This is live. It will replay, so you're not going to miss anything. It's going to be audio on the radio everywhere. So you'll find it. You can listen to it. There's a whole 6 seasons of this. I would say 100. Of different shows that touch on multiple things. Social media has been in the debate and discussion a couple of times, but because that's the way it is, and it's just how we use it. So that's it. I'm Hurricane H. This is Climb to Your Prime with Dr. Heim. We'll be talking soon. The next, it's usually the end of the month. So we'll look forward at the end of May to the next discussion with Dr. Heim. That's it. Bye for now.